We continue now at the top of Daf Chesam and Beis and Meseches Gittin. This is Gittin Daf 8b. The Gemara is continuing to list ways in which Surya is like Eretz Yisrael, and the Gemara says if a person acquires a field in Surya, it is kikone befrure Yerushalayim. It's like acquiring a field in the outskirts of Yerushalayim, which the Gemara will explain what that means. And the Gemara now goes through the various ways that Surya again is like Chutz La'aretz in some ways and like Eretz Yisrael in other ways. Chayeves b'ma'isro v'shvias k'Eretz Yisrael. So first of all, we said that in Surya there's a chayev of ma'isro and shvias just like Eretz Yisrael. Why is that the case? Because this brisa holds kivush yochid shmei kivush, that if an individual conquers land and annexes it to Eretz Yisrael, that's considered conquered land. That's considered part of Eretz Yisrael. Rashi says kivush yochid de David shelo kol Yisrael biyachad kederach shayu bekivush Yoshua. When David conquered land, all of Klal Yisrael wasn't united in conquering like they were by Yoshua. Shayu kulam v'chivshua letzorach kol Yisrael. By Yoshua, they all together conquered for the sake of Klal Yisrael. Kodem chaluka. This was before division. Aval David lo chavash elo letzorcho. But David, he conquered lands. It was really for his needs. And the Gemara continues, and it said that if somebody wants to enter Surya and be pure, so he can do so. And the Gemara asks on that, but didn't you also say before, Afaratami, that the dirt of Surya is Tameh? So what does it mean that you can enter B'Tahara, and at the same time you're saying it's like Chutz La'aretz, and the dirt is Tameh? And so the Gemara answers, B'Sheida Tevo Migdal. What we're talking about over here is the person enters in some kind of a container. It's a box, it's a chest, it's some kind of a closet. The Tanya, as we learned in a Braisa, Hanichnas La'eretz Ha'amim B'Sheida Tevo Migdal. If somebody enters outside of Eretz Yisrael, he enters the lands of the nations in a Sheida Tevo or Migdal, Rabbi Mitame, Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda Mitahir. So Rabbi says Tameh, and Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda says Tahar. And so the Gemara now explains how that's relevant to Surya. Ve'afilu Rabbi lo kamitame ela be'eretz ha'amim. Even Rabbi, he only said Tameh in that situation when you're in the regular Eretz ha'amim, in regular lands outside of Eretz Yisrael, the Gazra al Gusha v'al Avira, because in those lands there's a Gezerah on the earth and there's also a Gezerah on the airspace, and so even if you're enclosed in a Sheida Tevo Migdal, according to Rabbi, the individual will be Tameh. Aval Surya, but when it comes to Surya, al Gusha Gazru al Avira lo Gazru. So there was a Gezerah on the earth of Surya, but there was no Gezerah on the airspace. And that's why even Rebbe would agree. Rebbe, who says that Eretz Ha'amim, if you're in a Sheida Tevo Migdal, you're Tameh, but Surya is going to be different. It's possible to enter in purity if you're in a Sheida Tevo Migdal, so then there is no Gezerah on the airspace of Surya. And the Gemara continues, V'akona sada b'Surya kakona b'frure Yerushalayim. Again, it said that if a person acquires a field in Surya, that's like acquiring a field in the outskirts of Yerushalayim. And to that, the Gemara says, Lamai hilchasa. For what practical issue is that halacha relevant? Amar Rav Sheshes says, Lomar, what it means to say is as follows: Shekozven olav ono v'afila b'Shabbos, that you can write a star on that sale even on Shabbos. The point is that we want people to be able to take land away from the non-Jews in Eretz Yisrael to bring it back into the hands of Jews, and so therefore even on Shabbos, if you make such a purchase in Surya, you take back the land from the non-Jews, you're allowed to write a star even on Shabbos. The Gemara says, "B'Shabbos al Kadaitach." Do you really think you can write a star on Shabbos? That's a violation of an Isser D'Oraisa. Just to take back some land from the non-Jews, you can violate an Isser D'Oraisa. And the Gemara says, "Kida Amar Rava." No, what we mean to say is like what Rava said in a different context. Omer lo Ovid Kochavim v'Yosa. He can tell a non-Jew to write the star, and the non-Jew will write the star. Hachanami here also. That's all we mean. Omer li Ovid Kochavim v'Yosa. He can tell the idol worshiper to write the star. That he's allowed to do. V'Yafagav da'amir lo Ovid Kochavim Shavus. Now, even though in general telling a non-Jew to do something on Shabbos is a shvus, it's an Isser D'Rabbanan, but here Mishum Yishav Eretz Yisrael lo Gazer Rabbanan. Here, because of the mitzvah to settle Eretz Yisrael, the Rabbanan did not enforce their Gezerah. And Rashi explains, B'Sheida Tevo Migdal, again a chest or a box or a cabinet, V'nosim Osa Ba'avir, again they're carrying the person in the airspace. So Masha'in came B'Eretz Ha'amim V'Rebihi. That's not true in Eretz Ha'amim, meaning in Surya, a person goes in a Sheida Tevo Migdal, he's going to be Tahar. That's not true in Eretz Ha'amim. Now what's the reasoning over here? Rebbe Metame, Rebbe says Tameh in Eretz Ha'amim, even in a Sheida Tevo Migdal, Kasavar Oel Zarok Lo Shmei Oel, because Rebbe holds that if you have an Oel, but it's moving, that's not called an Oel, so it can't separate from any Tumah. Hachim Mefarish Be'erevin, that's what we say in Erevin, Oel HaMetaltel, ain't no Ohel B'Shas Til Tulu. If you have an Ohel that's moving while it's moving, it's not an Ohel. Hilkach, therefore, Chatzitza de Kamavsik Hay Ohel Beino, La'avir Eretz Ha'amim, therefore there's a Chatzitza over here, there's a separation with this Ohel between him and between the airspace of the Eretz Ha'amim, Lav Chatzitzahi. That's not really going to be considered a separation because it's moving. V'yashmin and Haitana de Surya de Le'el Dafilu Revi Lo Kametame, Ela B'Eretz Ha'amim. And that's what the Tana is saying. By Surya, even Rebbe, who normally normally says Tameh by Eretz Ha'amim, but that's only by Eretz Ha'amim. The Gazra al Gusha Magu Umasav Ohel, because again, when it comes to Surya, there's a Gezerah on the earth, meaning touching or carrying, but there is no Tumas Ohel in Surya. Kagonim Hel Olav, again, like he creates some kind of tent over the Tumah. Kedamrinu in Perak Beis de Olos, V'al Avira Shia Nechnas La'avira Tameh V'afilu Lo Nagav Lo Hisid Es Gusha. So there, we're not going to say such a thing, meaning if you're in Eretz Ha'amim, we do make the Gezerah on the Avir, but Avol Surya al Gusha Gazru Ma'agav V'Hesed. But again, in Surya, so the Gezerah is only on the Gusha. It's only on the touching and on the lifting. Avol al Avir, but on the airspace, Lo Gazru, there is no Gezerah. You don't have that Gezerah, meaning in terms of Tumas Oil in Surya, the same way you have it by Eretz Ha'amim. V'Hailo Nagav Lo Hisid. In this case, he's not directly touching any Tumah. He's not moving any Tumah, and so therefore it's just an issue of airspace. And if he's in a Shade Tevo Migdal, and there's no issue of airspace in Surya, there's not going to be a problem. And Rashi further on continues, Mishum Yishuv Eretz Yisrael, again, when it comes to settling Eretz Yisrael, and that applies to Surya as well, L'garesh Ovdei Kochavim V'leishev Yisrael, in order to drive out the idol worshippers, and the Klal Yisrael should settle Eretz Yisrael. So even on Shabbos, Amira La'akum is going to be okay, and that's going to extend to Surya as well. And the Gemara continues at the two dots, Tanu Rabbanon, the rabbis taught, Eved Shehevi Gito V'chasabo, let's say an Eved brings his own get, his own shtar shechrer, and it's written in the shtar, Atzmech Unechasai Kenuyin Loch, yourself and my property, they're all going to belong to you. So Atzmo Kanin Nechasim Lo Kanin. He gets himself, but he doesn't get the property. And Rashi explains, Eved Shehevi Gito, and Eved brings his own shtar mi Medina Sayam, he's bringing it from overseas. But Tzarech Lamra b'fanei nechtav ki isha hamevia Gita, the halacha is that an Eved, just like a woman who's bringing her get, an Eved who brings his shtar shechrer, also has to say b'fanei nechtav. Ta'amrina b'masnis and echad gitei nashim v'yechad shechrei avadim shavu l'molechu l'mevi. L'molechu mevi. We're going to say in the Mishnah that gitei nashim and shechrei avadim are the same when it comes to these halachas of bringing it in various directions from Eretz Yisrael to Medina Sayam, and Medina Sayam to Eretz Yisrael. So Atzmo Kana, so in a situation where it says in the shtar, it says you and my property belong to you, so he gets himself, the Nemanu al Shechrura Lomar b'fanei nechtav, he's believed to say b'fanei nechtav about his own freedom, v'yein tzarech edem l'kaim, where there's no need for edem to certify, but nechasim lo kana, he doesn't get the property, the boy edem kashar kiyam shtars, because there's a requirement, you need to have edem, like other times you're certifying a shtar, it's not enough that he says b'fanei nechtav. And so the Gemara says, iboy luhu, they have the following question. Kol nechasai kanuyan lachma. What if it says all of my property belongs to you? What's the halacha in that case? And Rashi explains the question, Kol nechasai mahu mi amrinan atzmechu nechasai trei diburei ninu. Do we say that if the shtar said you and my property, so that's two separate statements? Avol kol nechasai, but kol nechasai, that's all one statement. So kevan devechad dibura asule, since that's all one statement, so shichra atzmo umatnas nechasim, and that one statement is including the freedom and the gift of the property. Kedekaimelon lekamon, like we're going to say later on. Hakosev kol nechasav liavdo yatzav ben chorin shu bechlal nechasim. If a person writes over all of his property to his Eved, the Eved actually goes free because the Eved is also the property of the master. So hilkach, so therefore, in mehemen delo palgin dibura. On the one hand, we could say, well, if he's believed about his freedom, and this is all one statement now, it's not two separate statements, so we don't split up the statement, and we say he's also believed on the property, and he gets the property. Or dilma palginon, or maybe no, we say we split that statement, and he's believed in terms of his own freedom, but he's not believed in terms of the property. That's the question of the Gemara, called nechasai kenuyin lachmahu. So Amar Abaya says, Mitoch shekana atzmo, since he can acquire himself, he's believed regarding his freedom, kana nechasim, he also acquires the property. Amar le Rava says back to Abaya, Bishlama atzmo likni, I understand he acquires himself, midi dehavi agerisha, just like by gerisha, there's a halacha that you're believed to say, b'fanei nechta. Ela nechasim, but when it comes to the property, lo likni, he shouldn't acquire that, midi dehavi akiyim shtaris di alma, because that's true by normal kiyim shtaris, you need two witnesses, one shliach is not believed in those cases. So therefore, Hadar Amar Abaya, so therefore Abaya retracted, and instead he said as follows, the other direction. Mitoch shelo kana nechasim lo kana atzmo, since he does not acquire the property, because again he's not believed to say b'fanai on the property, so he doesn't acquire himself either, he doesn't go free. But Rava argued with that as well. Amar le Rava said to Abaya, B'shlama nechasim lo likni midi dehavi akim shtaris dialma, I understand he doesn't get the property, because that's like kiyim shtaris, you need two witnesses. Ela atzmo likni, but himself he should acquire, he should be able to go free. Midi dehavi agerisha, similar to what we find by gerisha, that b'fanai should work. So Elo Amar Rava, rather Rava says, Echad zeh v'echad zeh, atzmo kana, nechasim lo kana. In both situations, it doesn't make a difference, he's going to acquire himself, and he does not get the property. And Rashi says, Echad zeh v'echad zeh, bein atzmich unachasai, bein kol nachasai. It doesn't matter if he says you, yourself, and my property, or he just says all of my property. In both cases, we essentially split up the terms, so to speak, and we say he's believed in terms of the freedom, but not in terms of the property. And the Gemara says, Amarle Ravada bar Masna l'Rava. So Ravada bar Masna said to Rava, come on, who are you following? Rabbi Shimon damar palgina dibur. It seems like you're following Rabbi Shimon, who holds that we split up the statement, as we mentioned earlier. The Tanan, as we learned in a Mishnah, Hakosev kol nechasav liavdo yotza ben chorin. If a person writes over all of his property to his slave, so the slave goes free. Shayir karka kolshu. Now, if he leaves out any karka, lo yotza ben chorin. So then he doesn't go free. Rabbi Shimon Omer, Rabbi Shimon says, and Rashi explains, Hakosev kol nechasav liavdo, kagon kol nechasai nesunalach, again, like our case. The person writes, all of my property goes to you. Yatza ben chorin, he goes free. Shafu bechlal nechasim. Bechal shar nechasim nami kana. He's also part of the property of the owner, and therefore he gets himself, and he gets all of the property. But shayir karka kolshu lo yatza ben chorin. But if any property is left out, he doesn't go free. Karka lav dafka. Rashi notes over here, it's not specifically karka, it's any property. Kedamar b'Baba Basra b'Perek Mishameis, like we say in Baba Basra. So lo yatza ben chorin, he doesn't go free. The bishlam aresha de lo gali daiti de nachas l'shiura lo amrin de shayir. Because it makes sense in the ratio where he didn't leave anything out, so there's nothing left out, so he goes free, he gets everything. But here where he's already leaving out property, so we say maybe he also left out the Evet too. Maybe when he said kol nechasai, he just meant other property. And this was really just to flatter him. And he's not really freeing him, because he didn't say atzmachu nechasai. And again, the Mishnah continues with Rabbi Shimon's Shita, and we will continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Tes Amud Aleph.